Bhabani and Jayne Lewis-Orr. Adhuna and Jayne will be discussing what is informally recognised as the Oscars of the hairdressing community, the British Hairdressing Awards, in association with Schwarzkopf Professional UK, which is nearly 4 decades old and literally one of the biggest nights of the year for the hairdressing community. Today, Adhuna and Jayne will be discussing the newest category to the BHAs, the International Collection of the Year, which this year marks its 5th year in existence and is a unique category open exclusively to international artists residing outside of the UK. Before I hand over to Adhuna and Jayne, I'd like to give intros to each of them, which, whatever I say, will still not be enough to cover their achievements and contributions to the hairdressing communities. Adhuna, affectionately known to everyone in the industry as Odd, launched her very first salon in India in 1998, along with her brother Ashok, also known as Osh, having already made a mark with her work in the UK and in India for doing things a little bit differently. Inspired by the punk era, which she was surrounded by at the age of 16 when she started hairdressing, more for the fashion than the music continues to be the spark that pushes her to try and always think out of the box. In 2004, Adhuna and Osh co-founded salon chain Bblunt as India's first destination salon, which recently sold to digital FMCG unicorn Mama Earth, allowing Adhuna time to recharge and focus on the next chapter of her inspiring journey to date. Jayne is one of the most recognised names in the British and global hairdressing communities. Having worked as editor-in-chief of Hairdressers Journal for many years, she's one of the most renowned and trusted voices in the trade press and global hairdressing community. In her new role as executive director of the Professional Beauty Group, Jayne Lewis-Orr has been actively involved in the hair and beauty business for over 3 decades. An unwavering supporter of the hair industry, Jayne's also a trustee of the Hair and Beauty Charity and Vocational Training Charitable Trust, and sits on the councils of the Hair and Barber Council and Hair and Beauty Suppliers Association. Thank you, ladies, for being part of this important conversation, which we hope will inspire many new entrants from around the world to take part in this year's BHAs. Over to Adhuna to lead the conversation.
Thank you so much, Vic, for that lovely introduction, and so lovely to meet you, Jayne.
And you, Adhuna, and thank you, Vic. It's great to see you this morning.
I had the very lovely job of being able to ask you a bunch of questions on behalf of everyone here in India and everyone else who may be watching. First of all, what are the BHAs and what's all the fuss about?
So the British Hairdressing Awards was launched in 1984, so even before I was on the group. And basically was launched to recognise creativity in the industry and kind of raise the profile of the industry as a whole, and actually the skill and technical ability and creative element to the industry, so that I think so that we felt it could be recognised and rewarded in the right way and seen and respected. So that was the reason for the launch way back then, and in many ways it hasn't changed. And actually, what's also been lovely for Hairdressers Journal is we've worked with the same partner, so Schwarzkopf Professional, since that inception. So as a sponsor and partner in the event, they've stayed with us all the way through the journey. So it's certainly changed from what was a much smaller event with less categories to what you see today.
And you recently launched a new category, which is the international category. I wanted to ask a little bit more about that, and you know, how is that different from, or is it different from any of the other categories?
So we were getting lots of inquiries from around the world. Just to give you a bit of background, we kind of have focus groups, and it has been a British solely event up until this date. And we have many focus groups asking them what we need to see more of. We've tweaked categories, we've introduced new categories, and we started to get a lot of pull and requests for anyone outside of the UK to be able to enter, because the event is fortunately recognised globally. There was this desire that actually international hairdressers wanted to be recognised with their peer group in the UK. And so we launched in 2019, actually, so it was just before the pandemic. So we did do one literally before the world changed overnight. And we launched an international collection, and were delighted with the with the kind of the take up of that, and that's continued to grow year on year since that date. It is the same in that the rules apply in the same way to the international category as they do to the regions, because we found that over years it's the fairest and best way to make sure that the work submitted is the right work. And we can demonstrate that it is the work of the people saying it, whose work it is. And we have a very robust and vigorous judging process, which I'm sure we'll cover in a bit, but that makes sure that the right people make finalists and then ultimately win. So it really was a demand from the international markets to say, we would love to be able to take part. How can you facilitate that?
So who can enter? Which countries can enter?
Anywhere can enter. So we've literally had entry. So we've had winners already from Australia, from Ukraine, from Russia. We've had entries from all over Europe, South Africa, Japan. So we've had lots of different countries enter, but it's been great because working with Vic and the team across the professional beauty group, we obviously want to spread that message to the regions that we're actively involved in, and try and encourage more people to enter. And actually, we had Vic brought a group of Indian alumni, kind of luminaries in the industry, over to see the event last year. And I think from what Vic said, they were very pleasantly surprised with how big and the scale of the event. So I think that's really started now to kind of take off and get some traction.
Oh, they were very impressed. I've chatted with them all and they had a great time. I'm very inspired to come back and have a go at participating.
Brilliant.
You said that in the rules and regulations for the international category comply with the rules for the other categories. Is there anything different that somebody, that the international hairdresser should be aware of?
I think it would be the rules around kind of wigs, extensions, and hair pieces, because actually in our avant-garde category, you can use as much of that as you like, but that's only open to UK resident hairdressers. So the thing to just be cautious of, and to be fair, Adhuna, we've changed this recently, again, in light of demand. Models are more difficult to come by, the cost, and also many agencies won't let, if you turned up with hair my length, they won't let the girls have a very short bob that's bleached blonde, for example. So we've expanded the use of wigs. So 4 wigs can be used in a total of the 8 images, because if you're a finalist, it's 8 images you need for the final round. And hair extensions and pieces can be used in a further 2. So it's that sometimes catches people out. So actually, in your collection of 8, which is what you would need if you're a finalist, 2 of them need to be absolutely natural hair. 2 of them can have pieces and extensions in, and 4 can be complete wigs if you choose to do that. Absolutely, there's no diktat on doing that, and we often get 8 images that have nothing added to them. But it would be around that wigs. I think wigs, extensions, hair pieces, and strands. The other rules tend to be around just that we like to see a before photo of the model, and a before photo actually of the image once the hair and the makeup and the styling is done, and before any retouches is done. I think it's a real crusade for me and the team behind the British Hairdressing Awards. It is not a retouching competition. It is about the skill of the hairdresser. So the less retouching, the better, and kind of no retouching on the hair.
That's fantastic. That really shows the craft, the true craft as well.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you again for a little more clarity. So in the UK categories, you have the different themes like avant-garde, artistic, Afro, trend image, etc. Is there a certain look that you can expect from the international collection, or can they do a submission that falls in any of those categories?
They can. They just need to be conscious of that. That's why I say, particularly around the avant-garde, it's the piece around the wigs and extensions and the hair pieces. That's the bit where they need to have some caution. But for example, we don't ask for the images to be exclusive for this category. So if they've been used in another awards, for example, I know that a number of collections I've seen, I also judge the Australian Hairdressing Awards, have been in the Australian Hairdressing Awards. And rightly, you want to get bang for your buck, right? So why would you not reuse them? So they are they don't have to be shot exclusively for the British Hairdressing Awards. I mean, my thing is, you need to shoot images that you love as a professional and that reflect your brand. So for me, it's about making sure they reflect who you are and what you stand for as a stylist and a hairdresser, rather than shooting to win, because you want to be able to use the pictures for more than just the British Hairdressing Awards. So we don't, and there is a really wide variety in the category, from quite commercial to some more avant-garde looks. But what I would say is, if you look at the images from previous years, the finalists and the winners absolutely demonstrate that technical ability as well as the creativity. So it is about seeing what people can do with hair, even if it's using hair as a fabric.
Lovely. So I do believe that we have somebody who is keen to do an avant-garde entry. So all that person needs to look out for is just the clarity in the amount of hair that can be used per model.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. There are no restrictions. We say no more than 2 faces in each image, because we want the hairdressers to be able, the judges, to be able to see the hair that they're judging in each image very clearly. And if you imagine, if they're all very small and there's many, you can't judge that in the same way. So it's 2 faces per image. But what the stylist chooses to do with the hair is down to the stylist.
So a maximum of 2 faces per image.
Yes.
So you could submit two of your looks in one image.
No, it would have to be in one shot. So if it was, so for example, the picture of you and I on the screen wouldn't work. If we were together, then you could have our 2. I mean, clearly they wouldn't, but if they were Juven or me, you could have those 2. Do you know what I mean? You could have 2 faces in one image. What you can't do is mash 2 separate images together as one image. It needs to have been shot as one image.
As one image.
But it does tend to be single images. And I think if people look, you can look at the galleries on our website, you'll see that most people are shooting one image per, one face, one model per image.
That's why I asked, actually, because that's what I've seen traditionally people doing. Okay, so we are saying that we need to produce 4 photographs for the initial entry.
Yes, you do.
And do you advise that people who are entering prepare in advance with the next 4 looks?
I mean, it really does depend on the stylist, and it also depends on, some stylists will be able to achieve 8 looks quite easily in one day. Others maybe not. So we find here that some will shoot all 8 in one day because they just want them in the can in the hope that they get through. And I think the feeling is because it needs to be a collection of 8. It can't be 2 separate collections. It needs to hang together aesthetically. And I think many people feel that if they've got that magic going on that day, they want to capture that magic and get the 8. But equally, we have people who shoot the 4 because they've always done that, and they feel they're tempting fate if they shoot the next 4. So they don't want to do that. Superstition. So, I mean, we have people saying, I can only sit on the left-hand side of the room because I don't win if I sit on the right. So people are really superstitious, and I get it, because it means the absolute world to be a finalist and ultimately to win. So, I mean, you have to do what you're comfortable doing. And, I suppose it's like any shoot, surround yourself with people. I mean, it's all in the planning, right? And I'm sure you can give better advice than I can about shoots, but it's all in the planning and making sure that the team hang together. They know what the end goal is. They share the vision of the stylist. I think for me, it can be frustrating if you think it's become more of the photographer shoot, for example, because sometimes you can spot the work of the photographer more than you can spot the work of the stylist. And actually, it is the stylist shoot. It is a hairdressing competition. And it's about that skill that we're rewarding people.
But how much of the photography matters?
Look, it does matter. It all matters because we all know what you're looking at is aesthetic, isn't it? So if it catches the eye, what I always say to people is the images that win are the ones that when you see all the images at the judging, and there are many, they pop. That kind of like, wow, they catch the eye and they pop off the wall. That said, We have had people win who spent zero budget because they went and found a photographer who wanted to build the portfolio, a makeup artist who was doing the same, a clothes stylist, they street cast models. And actually, if it goes back to that whole team cohesion, doesn't it? If the team are shooting for the same end result, you will get the right end result. I mean, yeah, you know, you need someone who is going to be able to capture the hair in the best possible light and make the hair be the focal point and the shining part of that image. So, you know, the aesthetic is important, but I am super strict with the judges, and they are judging the hair. It is about the hair work.
The hair has to be the hero.
Yeah, the hair is absolutely a hero in every single image. So, you know, they're also judged that they're also briefed that, you know, you might have two absolutely cracking images, but if the others are not the same quality or standard, they have to mark that accordingly. It is a collection of 4 in the first round and ultimately a collection of 8 that win the awards. So they all have to stand on their own 2 feet.
Right, they have to stand individually and as a collection.
Yeah, they do. And it's about, and when I say individually, they have to stand with the technical and the kind of technical prowess and the skill of the hair, for sure. That is paramount all the time. And I bore the judges senseless, reminding them that it's about the hair and about the no retouching. And you know, the judges have access to the pre-shots before. So if any of them are not sure if it's been retouched, or they just want to check, or they just want to query, then they can see the images actually while they're judging. We keep them separately, but they have access to all the images through via our team, so that if they're not sure about something, they can have a look at the pre-shot.
And so as long as you submit the raw image prior to any post-production on the image,
yes. Yeah,
you can then go ahead and have, you know, have a little fun perhaps with the retouching.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can. Absolutely. And people do, you know, with backgrounds, and, you know, I get they'll want to sometimes tidy up the skin, or there's a particular look they're going for. Yeah, absolutely. But it's about not retouching the hair.
Right. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And brilliant. I there is one question which I missed a little earlier, which I do think it's important that I touch on, and that is cost. Is there any fee to actually enter the competition?
No.
Would there be anything that the hairdresser themselves should be aware of while entering the awards in terms of the cost?
No, so there is no cost to enter. It's absolutely free to enter. All our finalists are actually invited as our guests on the night. So the finalists are invited. I appreciate if they're flying in from around the world, there is a cost to that. But there is no cost to enter. We don't charge people to put the entries together in order to, you know, actually enter the competition. I think we're all very conscious, you know, some people do it on a budget. Some people do spend a reasonable amount of money on doing this, and we don't want there to be any barriers to entry. So we want to make it fair for everybody. So, you know, so absolutely, there's no fee to enter. We don't charge for entry. And on that entry point, there's really useful stuff when you go into the website and look at the entry process, because much of it is done online. The guys entering can see, you know, what they need to do, and actually the only physical prints we need these days are actually the final finished prints to come to the judging. Right.
Just because of distance and your, you know, the countries that enter from overseas.
Yes.
Is there a way of doing an online entry with the image online?
So the entry is done online in terms of entry form, the pre-production, and the pre any work being done at all. So the raw model, no hair, no makeup, and the pre any post-production is done online. But we have to have the physical entries because in the photographs, we ask the hairdressers to print those, often because they print them on specific paper. It might have a slightly different finish. And so we have to have it because we actually build a gallery. So we build like an art gallery for the awards to be judged in. So we do that for the first round, and then we rebuild it again for the second round.
Right. Understood. So that's why the physical.
Yeah, that's why we want the physical. And also, just to be, that makes it, you know, there can be an issue sometimes with screen resolution and image quality on screen. So if they're printed physical hard copy that all of the judges see everybody's work, it's absolutely fair because it's the images that, yeah,
I understand. And what is the deadline? When do those images have to be in your London office?
So they have to be in our London office, and I'm just going to check this. It's Friday, the 30th of June. I'm looking at Lizzie, who's sat next to me. It is Friday, the 30th of June by 5 p.m. So
Friday,
the physical,
by 5.
Yeah,
Okay.
5 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And that has to come, that has to land in the office. So people need to make time for courier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. And what advice would you give? I know you've given us a lot of advice already, but we have you only for a short period of time.
That's fine.
So I'm going to ask, what advice would you give to somebody entering this category or this competition for the first time?
I think it goes back to what I kind of touched on before. You have to shoot what you love. I think trying to replicate what other people have done, or shooting, you know, trying to shoot something that you think is going to win a competition, for me, that's not authentic. And then you won't have the same passion as if you were shooting for your own brand. So it has to be something that, regardless of the outcome of the British Hairdressing Awards, you absolutely love it. You know, it was the best you could possibly have achieved. It was what you wanted it to say about you, your business, your brand, your salon, your team, you know, all of those things, and something that you will be proud to use marketing collateral in your windows. Do you know what I mean? It has to be something that represents who you are as a brand, as opposed to what you think might win an award.
That's lovely, that no matter what the outcome, the project itself is just fabulous for any stylist to do from start to finish. Yeah,
we have lots of people enter who haven't won, and they continue to go year after year. And as much, absolutely, the aspiration is to win. There's no doubt about that. But actually, they get a fantastic collection and a body of work that leads to other opportunities, whether that be, they're recruiting staff and people see this as a salon that's really creative and want to come and work there. They want to be part of that process, attracting new clients, using it in your marketing collateral. And actually, there's also a lot to be said for being a finalist. I mean, I know everybody wants to win, and I am no different. I am super competitive, and you don't want to lose. But that said, to be a finalist in a category that is recognised globally is an absolute exceptional achievement, I think. And I mean it when I say anyone who gets to that stage should be super proud. But you shouldn't forget, I think it takes real bravery to put yourself forward for an event and for an awards, because you're putting your work out there to be judged. And it's subjective, isn't it? So it is a brave thing to say, I'm going to be brave enough to put me, my brand, and my work on show to the best hairdressers in the world.
It's very brave, but it's also extremely inspiring. And I think there's a lot of buzz in India right now amongst us hairstylists about the possibilities, of a competition like this on that kind of a platform. So if you were to say 3 things that one should consider when creating a collection, or what the judges would be looking out for, don't slap me. What would the 3 top things you would say that the judges would be looking out for?
Technical ability, without a doubt. So, and the technical ability of the stylist, whether that be the color, all of it, the color, the cut, the finish, the styling, that creative and beautiful finish. So whether it is avant-garde or whether it is more a commercial look, having that beautiful finish. And I think for the judges, it would be, it is the aesthetic, because it's those images that pop off the wall when you see them, and you still look at them and go, wow, they're the ones that will capture the eye. And I suppose that's what everybody is striving to achieve.
Okay, some good tips there. Thank you for that. And just on the flip side, if you were to say what are the most common mistakes that people make, I think that could be helpful.
I would say definitely too much retouching. So too much retouching will turn judges off, because you then start to question what, you know, if it's so heavily retouched, what else has been retouched? Because let's be honest, retouching is a real art and people are very, very good at it. So I think retouching, you know, it is a technical hairdressing competition. It is not a retouching competition. I think it's also, it's just about kind of keep, I suppose, and I've spoken to hairdressers before who've said, oh, you know, they got talked into doing something different from what their heart was telling them to do originally, and they'll regret that because they wish they'd stuck with their original vision and concept. You know, it is great to absorb ideas from everybody, but at the end of the day, it is your shoot and you have to shoot what you think is going to win and replicate who you are. So I think it is that, and it's about staying focused on the, you know, what what drives their passion, as opposed to what everybody else wants to think. Whilst you should absolutely take other people's views, you know, I think you have to know what you want to achieve at the end of it.
Sometimes that is experience and maturity, right?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely right. Yeah, it does come with experience and maturity. And I think the only other thing would be just don't get caught by the wig hairpieces. We ask every image. So when you're sending in collections, those that you've used wigs or extensions or hairpieces in, you need to mark the back of the image, because we're often asked at the judging, that's a wig. And we can say, yes, that is. And they've declared it, but they're within the number of wigs that they're allowed for the entry. So it's just about being able to clarify and reassure the judges, because we do that pre-check work.
And that is specified in the rules, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the other mistake, and this is one that breaks my heart when it happens, is sending images that are not packed properly. So they come in and then they're creased, and it's a noticeable crease on the photograph. Or it sounds really writing, because you have to obviously put your name, the category, and the picture order you want them displayed in. So we ask people to say, you know, do you want them 1, 2, 3, 4? Which order would you like us to put them up in for you? Because often the collection tells a story, doesn't it? And people want it in a bespoke way. And don't write on the back of the image. Because it comes through the image, and we've had it in previous ways where actually ink can leak through the image depending on your paper. So always put it on a sticker and stick it. I mean, they sound really obvious, but in the heat of the moment when you're thinking, I have to get these pictures away, don't be tempted to write on the back of them, and always make sure they're packed so that they come through and they're in the same condition when we receive them as they were when they were posted.
Yeah, I think some of these are good tips to share, because the creative people get carried away into the flow of the work and maybe do make a silly mistake like that.
Yeah, it's just, and then you have to ring and say they're creased, you know, and we give people the option to resend them, but that's expensive and time consuming, and you don't, you know, if they're close to the deadline, they won't get them in. So they are simple things to avoid, I would say.
Brilliant. That's super helpful. But if someone is selected in the first round, what are the next steps after that?
So the next steps are everyone who's entered will receive an email. We absolutely aim for that to be the day after the judging. So they will receive an email saying, you know, either really sorry you haven't been successful this time, but hopefully they'll receive an email saying, congratulations, you are now a finalist. Which will very clearly set out what they need to do. And it will, you know, we need an additional 4 photographs, which have to be sent to the office, and I will double check the date of that. So
good to know, what is the time difference?
It's from memory, it's a month, but I'm just going to triple check that final date. So we would hope by the 25th or 26th of July, everybody will know if they're a finalist. They will need to send through a further 4 images, and then it's the 25th of August. So, is it a Friday? It is a Friday. Friday, the 25th of August is the second round close date. So that's when we have to physically have those second 4 images in the office, and we have to everything has to be loaded up on the platform. and I'm sure people are saying, why do you need them so early if you don't judge until July? Because every image has to be individually prepared. Just to clarify, all of the judging is done anonymously. So there is nothing on the entry. So each one is given its own unique reference code, and the judges mark with the reference code. So they have no idea whether they're your pictures, whose pictures. And that's the fair and proper way to do it. But that takes a long time.